every business, no matter what business you have, you're gonna have to use it or you won't have a business in the future. It's gonna sound a lot like everybody else. It's gonna look a lot like everybody else, and it won't differentiate your business, but allowed me to scale my business at a very rapid pace to go from an independent juice bar to 10 times literally the amount of traffic and sales at Johns Hopkins. This is AI Unlocked, why small businesses are struggling with AI and how we can avoid it. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not here to dump a bunch of tools on you guys. I'm not here to show you a bunch of fancy whiz bangs about all the things that AI can do, but I am here to help you get clarity on how you think about using it, and then also a system that you could use if you're gonna be using content.
Yeah, it helps me to structure my message, organize my thoughts, and put it out in a way that's palatable to my audience.
Got you. My experience in getting results is from my juice bar. So a few years ago, back in 2020, I opened a juice bar. It did pretty well. Within 9 months or so, Johns Hopkins hit me up and asked me about doing a partnership to bring my juice bar brand to their business. Fortunately enough for me, I was able to get over there. And by the time I got there, AI came out in 2022. So it allowed me to scale my business at a very rapid pace to go from an independent juice bar in Mount Vernon, right up the street on Charles, to 10 times literally the amount of traffic and sales at Johns Hopkins. So using AI, I had to learn. Everybody just had to learn, and now we're all moving at our own pace. I was able to move fast enough to use it in my business. A lot of that had to do with creating content and logistics, operations, inventory, a lot of the boring things that we don't love to do, but it's necessary for our business, including admin. My skill set was mostly around branding and marketing, and so that helped me get a lot of brand recognition, which is why Hopkins came in a little bit of love. And what I noticed as I was building that business is that a lot of other businesses were either really, really resistant to AI, or they were getting started somewhere along the way. And every business, no matter what business you have, you're gonna have to use it or you won't have a business in the future. I'm not trying to tell you doom and gloom. The truth, every business is gonna be using it in the future to some degree. Some high percentage of their business, they're probably gonna be using it. However, a lot of businesses don't think about how they use it and what they're going to use it for in their business, especially around content, because content is low-hanging fruit. And I don't mean that in a way that makes it less valuable. It's just the easiest thing to do, because content is a way that we communicate. We all have to communicate our business. AI is built on language. Language is communication. So you see the connection, right? That's why it's so fun, and that's why it's so accessible for everybody, because as humans, we're blessed that we have language. Language is our highest form of technology. We don't think about it that way, but that's what language is for us. And so AI is built on language, and that allows us to use it so well. Now, with run to use it without thinking about how to use it, what to use it for, is you get a lot of speed because it can just spit out words fast. You get some power because it can ingest books and give you back a lot of structure. But if you're not careful, if you're not thinking about what you're trying to do, then it's gonna sound a lot like everybody else. It's gonna look a lot like everybody else, and it won't differentiate your business. And if a business starts with us, then it's a representation of us, and you should probably want anything that's representing you and your business to be as much like you to get the impact you want for your customers, for your clients, for your community, or however it is you wanna make an impact with. So these are prime examples. I sanitized this because I don't wanna pick on anybody, but I just gave some examples of what generic AI looks like. And we're gonna talk about a system to kind of help you not do these things. So you go to create content, and when I say create content, I'm not just talking about TikTok or Instagram. Everything that you put out from your business is content, because somebody has to read it to understand what's happening. So that could be a poster, it could be an Instagram caption, it could be a YouTube script, it could be a pamphlet. All of these things where we have to put down words, videos, right? Audio, video, or written word. That's content. All of it starts with language. So it may be emojis, right? If you're talking about social media, say give me an Instagram caption, it may hit you with a bunch of emojis like this. And if you're not very inclined to use social media, you don't know that this is not that good, okay? M dashes, they're not bad. That's real writing. Like that's something that you use, but AI will over-index on that. And you might get 3, 4 of them in some kind of passage, and that's not natural speak. That's not very natural. So people can kind of tell. Or you get generic images. These images aren't bad. They actually look good. They look like real people, but some people use them too much, and then everybody can use it. So now everything's going to look alike. And some social media we use, but if you ask AI to give you something, it'll spit out hashtags in a very generic way, and it's not as effective as what AI thought it was. So I'm going to tell you exactly why this happens, why I think it happens, and then what I learned from people who I talk to. This is a untold AI marketing secret. So my background is in graphic and fashion design, and my first business was nightlife marketing and promotion. So my background in marketing gave me a little bit of insight on what I started to see really fast in AI. So AI is trained on all of the internet. As much of the internet as it can get to, which is pretty much all of it, that's what it's trained on, which means it's going to have skills and understanding for writing or communicating that everybody has access to. And once everybody has something, it becomes average. It becomes for the every person, for the every man, for the every woman. So if you're not that good at communicating, adept at using social media, and you use AI, improve what you output towards the average. So let's just say this whole thing is output, right? This is all content. Right here in the middle, AI is going to push everything this way. So if you're not good at it and you're here and you put something in AI, it's going to push you up towards the middle. But if you are a little bit better, it's not about being perfect, but if you're a little bit better, AI is going to push it unless you give it better directions. It's still going to push it to the mean because it's trained on everything that's ever been put on the internet. If you own a business, you probably don't want it to be average. You don't want it to be like everything else in the middle. You want it to be distinct. Now, distinct could be subjective. It could be worse than what somebody else does in their business. It could be better, but at least it's yours. Okay, and that's what we want to get to. We want to be able to use AI to create something that we feel like is ours, that actually resonates with whoever it is we want to serve, we want to improve. So we got to be cautious about it. But this is what we're seeing a whole lot of. It's not that people are bad guys because they're using it, but everything's going to get pushed to the middle. Those aren't the outcomes we want. So the AI won't fix confusion. It won't fix that average unless you give it very specific directions. In other words, if you put in crap, you're going to get back crap. You got to give it direction so that it knows exactly what to do. If you don't, you're going to get subpar results. And we all want good results for our customers and clients, right? You don't want to waste money. So you may subscribe to some tool, then you pay for something and you may get frustrated easily. You might put out something like, what are you doing? This don't make sense. And now you upset. But it really just responded to what you gave it. So you have to spend a little more time on it. This is when you the help button on the page, trying to figure out, can I actually get help? Or you go into the little chat window in the bottom right corner, trying to see if you can get some help. And then you get mad and you put in a ticket. Now you got to wait for the email to come back, trying to get some help. You may have to go through a whole lot of that. Ultimately, you want to get results. So if you don't clear things up in the beginning, it's going to be confused from the start. One thing I do know, customers respond to clarity. If you can give people a step, a 1, 2, 3, this is what the admission price is, or this is how you get in, it's very clear. We respond to clarity. AI is the same way. It responds to clarity. So again, I said it's going to give you speed, it's going to give you power, but we have to apply judgment. And so a lot of small businesses are struggling because day-to-day work can get hectic and you may not have time to think about all of the processes. And then you get poor quality, you get generic messaging, you get very robotic emojis, you're going to get inconsistency with your content. And that inconsistency, for example, you guys may or may not be familiar with this, there's an animation studio from Japan called Studio Ghibli. So it's, okay, it got really popular. So everybody made that picture. They generated a picture of themselves as a Ghibli piece. So if somebody said, make a picture of me, the AI may default to Ghibli because, so it was on trend and now it's going to give you that. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to be able to inject some judgment so things can be thoughtful. So you want, and you're going to get an authentic voice and you want to make it repeatable. What the power behind a lot of AI is that it can repeat processes flawlessly with very few mistakes. It may not be perfect. It can hallucinate, but we want to repeat the same good outcomes as often as possible in our business. That's how we stay paid. That's how people get the help that they want. That's how businesses grow, communities benefit from it. So you want to be mindful of that. And so the system I came up with when I was using it in my juice bar was that you can't just set it and forget it. That's not what the tool is about. You have to have human judgment. In AI tech speak, they call it human in the loop. So if it's a loop and you're using the AI tool for output, somebody has to supervise it. So earlier today, Sharif talked about it. You got to have some human oversight. Okay, so yes, it's a lot easy. It's very easy to get these outcomes, but you want to have human oversight and then you let AI execute. I like to think of it like the 80-20 rule. You guys familiar with the 80-20 rule? So, you get 80% of the outcome from 20% of the input. As humans in the loop, you can only have to do about 20% of the input. That input starts in the very beginning where we talk about the judgment, right? What you decide what it's going to work on, maybe when it's going to work on those things. AI can handle the middle 80% of execution, and then the last 10%. So the first 10 is judgment, middle 80 is AI, and then the last 10 is oversight, right? More judgment. Was this good? Was this unique to me, or was it true for me, right? Was it authentic in what I wanted to put out for this piece of content? Especially in spaces like books, right, where you have to demonstrate real authority, or places where you really have to show up and speak, even if it's like writing a script. Like, yeah, you might use AI to help you write a script for maybe a speaking presentation or something like that, but you want to make sure it uses words that you use, or you're going to be stumbling over words. It's not going to come across very well. So I used to play basketball in high school, so the system I came up with is a reference to basketball. Even if you don't like basketball, you're going to get this. It's going to be pretty easy to understand, but I call it the full court system. So you can see I'm not that tall. So they just made me play point guard. So I had to be responsible for other people on the court. And so I'm running around getting on all the big guys, and I was like, hey, I need you to move over here, do this and be here for me. And so that's how I kind of looked at my business when I had my juice bar. I had a team of employees. I had to put people in position. And then when AI came along, I said, well, this is pretty much another employee that I had to put it out in position so that me and the rest of my team can actually go and score points and make money and serve customers, especially at Hopkins, where it's thousands of people every day walking through campus. And so the pressure was on us to show up, but I put together this full court system, and this is how I approach using AI for creating content. Some of this can be applied to how you use AI for business operations, for administrative tasks, for research tasks as well, but this is specifically for how you can apply it to creating content. So is it cool if I dive in and share this with you guys? It's only 4 parts. It's not super difficult. It's not a long laundry list of things and tasks and duties to do. All right, so here's a quick overview. So we got to set the court. You got to know who you want to court with. It's going to be people out there who don't play well. It happens. It's going to be people out there taller than others, or and then you got to know who's on the other team. You got to set the court, understand what's happening. I call it picking your shot. So now we're understanding exactly what kind of content we're going to be creating. And this applies to all businesses, because there are things that your business is going to be really good at. We're going to dive into each one of these one by one. But your business is going to be really good at something, and those are the things you should be talking about all the time, even if you get tired of talking about it. It doesn't matter. You should be repeating those things. That's why people will know you. That's how you pick your shot. Then you run the play. This is where you actually give the task. That's that 80% I talked about. You actually give the task over to AI, and it's going to go and it's going to do the things that you need it to do. And then eventually you score. You get results. You get the agent workflows. You get structure and outline for the writings that you have. You may even get full videos, because we have fancy tools that can create whole videos, right? So you give it all of this guidance, and it's going to give you much better results. So I'm going to go through one by one. Setting the court. This is where you establish your position. Sharif mentioned it earlier. Sharif and I are buddies, but he's a great guy, and I learned a lot from him. But you want to establish positioning. So positioning is not just fancy talk for whatever your business is about. You can determine what your position is, if you're for-profit or non-profit, if you are luxury, if you're premium, if you are mass market. You're determining where you are in the market for whoever you serve. And then you want to define some content pillars. So by show of hands, do you guys know what content pillars are? Can you share? Sure.
Studying, trying to.
Sure, you can share. You can share.
Yeah, well, content pillars are how you're going to frame your content correct for your strategy for your business.
Mm-hmm.
And content pillars are like the framework for what you're going to be posting online or your communications to who you, like you say, who you serve your content.
Exactly. It's a framework for what you decide what you're going to share. So, for example, one pillar could be, if we're talking about like sports or something like that. You might talk about, like, just to make it really clean cut, I'm a sports analyst. My pillars may be baseball, basketball, and football. I don't really talk about volleyball like that. That's not my thing. But I know these other 3 sports, so I'm going to always be talking about those. So those are some pillars that you can work within. Setting the court also includes your clients and what I call the anti-audience. Now, we cool with this ideal client thing because we know who we want to work with. We're not so good at saying who we don't want to work with and who we're not for. But it's very, very important because if you're creating content, you want to be able to use language that's more specific to the people that you want to work with and not for people you don't want to work with. And it's not because you need to try to engage people in a certain way or like make rage content, but you got to know who you don't want to talk to because it'll waste a lot of your time. So, for example, if you want to move your business upstream, you're not going to talk about discounts. I don't use the word discount in my business. I have special offers. I have package deals. I have bundles. I don't have discounts. I don't use the word free. There is zero cost, right? So you want to be like, that's being thoughtful in how you use and create content. And what it's going to do, and when I say waste your time, it's not because you're better than those people, but you already have people that you may be working with or looking forward to working with. And if you have to use a lot of your resources on your anti-audience, your ideal client is going to be running away, or you're going to make it more difficult because now you're not talking their language, right? And that's going to make it more challenging for your business. When it comes to your ideal clients, just to give a little bit more insight, again, you'll get all of these slides if you like them. Understanding what pains they have, what problems they have, and the actual language that they use, right? So my buddy here, he was at my table and he was telling us, he was like, you have to speak some things into existence. You have to use the right words to signal to yourself what you're doing. But it's the same thing if you're talking to your audience. You have to use signal words to them. There's going to be words that younger generations may use that you don't. If you don't serve them, you're going to look real corny showing up online trying to speak their language and you don't work with them at all. Because the people you serve are going to be like, what are you talking about, right? They're just not, Gen Z or anything like that. Now, picking your shots. This is where things get kind of fun because if you pick your shots and you let AI know exactly what we're trying to get done, then it can get into a really good rhythm of sounding more like you, creating things that you actually want to use to represent your business. You really have to think about your business as an extension of yourself. So 3 to 4 themes, like the content pillars we just talked about, like, basketball, baseball, and football, the other sports or whatever. I would say no more than 3, but this is not a class on content. I just don't suggest it because it could spread your message too thin. And if it's just you or a small team, it could overload how much you have to think about. We know AI can handle all of it, but then your AI might start sounding a little bit, sloppy, depending on what you're doing. All of these themes should connect to some kind of offer or a directive. We'll talk about that more in the next step. And this allows you to not have to guess what you're going to post. Right? If you already know what your themes are, and you already know when you're talking about something or whenever you're showing up, or a lot of times, so going back to my guest because we're here together at Unlock. I forgot your name. James. I do know your name. I'm tripping. So James has books. Okay, so he's an author. You know how you flip over to the back of a book and you see that beautiful picture of James and his email and his website. You get to the end of the book closed, you may want more from James. Does James have more books? Guess what? James got 7. In case y'all didn't know, James got 7. Here's my website. It's directed to this offer. There's a directive at the end. A lot of times people show up using online with content. They don't have a direction for people. There are people who want to know more. And their first instinct is not just going to be, let me DM them real quick. Because most people, it's social media, but everybody on there is not social. And it's almost kind of scary. So you have to give them directions. And the direction may not be buy this or buy that. The direction may be, if you got any questions, send me a message. Or if you like this post, share it with a friend. So you want to be mindful of that. Once you got your themes together, you give it some directive. No matter what kind of content, you want to make sure you can give people something to do next. Leave a comment. Tell me if you don't like it. Do you even like this color? Like it could be very simple things. That's really, really helpful. Now we got to run the play. We actually got to go and get busy. So like I broke it down, first 10%, you're going to choose what AI actually creates. You really want to be mindful of what you want it to do. For example, I write a newsletter. I write the newsletter by hand first before I give it to AI to do that middle 80%. I'll give it to AI. It has rules. I let it draft, and then I give it back to me to refine it. And the rules that my AI has may be different from yours. So for example, I used to work for a mental health clinic. They can't, and none of us are probably going to use these words, but they can't use words like crazy. So just imagine they have a guest writer who doesn't know that. We got to take that article and give it to AI to scan for words, because if not, you're going to say something that's going to offend your whole serving population. You want to have enough initiative and enough energy at the end of the day. If you let AI do all of the writing and all of the creating stuff, you'll have enough energy to come back and say, is this right or wrong for my business? And that is going to make you more endearing to the people that you already work with. Your customers like you more because they feel like it's coming from a real person, which it is, because at least you started it and you finished it the right way. And that builds more trust. And the more trust you can build with your customers, the more customers you'll have. You'll have more repeat customers. You can have loyalty programs, all of the cool things that come along with business. Now, I talked about workflows and setting up things that can Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. That's a part of running the play. So I figured out in my business with my juice bar, most of my clients came from Instagram. But I started using LinkedIn because I was picking up coaching clients. They talk way different on Instagram than they do on LinkedIn. So you can use AI to help you repurpose across multiple platforms. Once you get the hang of, you just got to adjust the words from one platform to another platform. So the writing style may change a little bit. The words change. The amount of text, you can go from 100 words to 300 words. 1,500 words. AI can help you repurpose all of these things. How we think about using it is more important than the actual tools, because the tools won't be as effective if you don't know how you're thinking about it. The last part, the fun part, the all-star MVP part, scoring buckets. Every piece of content should have a purpose. There's going to be times we just throw stuff out. It's times where we post just to say you posted something to any platform, and that's understandable. And so you just share anything. And now it doesn't have a purpose, and that doesn't help your business or your customers. So you want every piece of your content to have some kind of purpose. Even if the purpose is not to make a sale or to get a new follower, repeat what works. Steph Curry ain't stopped shooting threes yet because he makes them. He just repeats what works. Repeat what works. If you notice that a piece of content hits on any platform and you're getting hit, could be viral for you. It can be relative. If you're used to getting 10 and they got 100, you need to put that in your favorites and say, okay, maybe it was the format. It could be something that you was talking about and you showed up a bit more passionate on camera that day. You just want to repeat that over and over. Don't be scared to repeat things that work. The next step is crucial for any business because you want to make it as easy as possible. You want to lower the friction to take whatever the next step is. And when you're online and when you're using AI, it does that almost automatically. But you have to give it those directions. So you want to be able to take easy next steps and you want to incorporate that into your content. So those are all 4 steps of my 4-court system. That is the best way that I have learned how to use AI to actually grow a business. I didn't know when I was going to get a second store. Johns Hopkins DM'd me on Instagram. That's where they found me because that's where I showed up. Very, very clear. I sell plant-based juice, plant-based smoothies. That's it. We use these kinds of ingredients. We have these kinds of events. This is where my store is. Everything was very, very clear. And so they just sent me a message because it was that clear. So we make it clear as possible. Set the court. Know what you stand for. Know what your position is. Pick the shots. You and your team need to know exactly what you're going to be talking about when you're using or creating content. You're going to run the play. You actually got to go do it. Now, you can plan and batch content for months and weeks and days. You still got to go publish it. You have to post it and share it somewhere because you won't know. All our ideas are good in our head. Am I lying? And everybody has your idea is good when it's in your head, right? And then finally, score. You're going to get some results. These results may not come instantly. They can also be deceptive. Okay, if you're getting a lot of likes, a lot of follows, if you are going viral. Like I had a friend go viral for something that wasn't related to his business. I was happy for him. Like, yo, we just got one. But it wasn't related to his business. And he was very honest. He was like, you know, that don't move the needle in my business. And I was like, yeah, I see what you mean. I'm going to do the 60-second drill. I'm just going to ask 4 questions. You guys just think about the answer to each one. So the first question is, Do you know what your themes or those topics are that we talked about, like the content themes or pillars? The next question is, are you showing up consistently anywhere? Don't take on the pressure of trying to be online and omniscient and omnipresent everywhere, like knowing everything and being all everywhere. You got to get there at some point, and AI can make it easy. Like I told you guys, you can repurpose, but are you anywhere yet? Just one place consistently. All right, third question, is better content or just more content? Just think about that. Better could be whatever season your business is in. More money, more followers, more opportunities, more connections. You decide what better is, and you make your judgment on that. And the last part is, does your content actually lead anywhere? Give them somewhere to go to stay involved and engaged with your business. That's the benefit of having solid content that works for your business and using AI to create it. So the whole point of this was for us to get clear on how we think about using AI for content. Using AI goes back to those 4 steps for the 4-court system. Like I said, my goal is not to hit you with a bunch of whiz bangs. I just want you to have clarity and confidence. You want to have confidence that you're putting out something that you feel like is a good representation of your business, because it's going to live online all the time, 24/7. That is everything I have. Hopefully you guys, if you need to go back and, scan there, but I appreciate you guys. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.